What's up, everyone? Gojin the Makai Phantom approaching ya. This was supposed to be the only episode of Ultramonth to come out in July. Like, a bonus episode, so to speak.
Yeah, unfortunately, the first video got delayed twice due to it being lengthy, and the editing process was on the more challenging side as a result. But here we are. That said, with Anno and Higuchi's Shin Ultraman being released, people been loving it, and as expected, the film is one of the most successful movies of the year to come out in Japan.
However, did you know that one of Anno's first projects was an unofficial sequel to 1971's Return of Ultraman?
Yep, before they evolved into Studio Gainax, putting out big works such as Neon Genesis Evangelion, Fully Cooley, and Gurren Lagann, they were a far smaller corporation under the name Daicon Films. They generally released animated shorts and tokusatsu films like 1985's Yamata no Orochi no Gyakushu and Patriotic Squadron Great Japan, all making quite a decent profit, with Yamata no Orochi receiving a Blu-ray and actually kickstarted Shinji Higuchi's career as a special effects director. Generally, their existence was to promote their convention, and it was a success as they were known for their impressive skill and production value for a group of amateurs growing to be filmmakers.
Anyway, let's have a look at Daicon Film's Return of Ultraman, and see how one of Japan's biggest filmmakers began his career path before he got his hands on an official product.
Story opens with a meteor obliterating all of Hiratsune City, but during this, Matt, of course, comes to investigate the disaster, only to discover a giant beast to come with it they'd label Kyurion. But through their time in crisis, Ultraman Jack comes to save the day. Now, you'll probably notice that was one brief plot summary, but that is because while this is a movie to Return of Ultraman, the goal of the project was to mimic a lost episode to the show the best they possibly could. And overall, I'd say they did a decent job, especially for fan film standards. If one could replace the faces to what these characters should look like, it comes off like it belongs to the show. I kinda liked the handling of the nuke situation. I mean, you could bring up why nukes are necessary when you already have a deity from the land of light protecting ya. However, the city was already destroyed entirely, and they felt their only hope was that option. Probably would have been better to put this arc in a longer movie, considering while I get it was supposed to have the episodic vibe, this feels like something that'll be nearing a series conclusion that would probably be 2 to 3 parts rather than 26 minutes. Why? Because it doesn't have the time to build this monster as much of a threat. Yeah, the damage it caused was impressive, and he sure as hell left an impression on our heroes, but this is a pretty big thing for people who've been fighting alongside Ultraman Jack. What is this, North Korea?
So, Iran is giving America a fuckload of oil! Ah!
Now, in all fairness, these scenes are impactful, as the movie literally begins where we see a little girl playing before it takes place. And while we don't see any of the aftermath, our imagination does that for us. Cats, for the most part, aren't bad for a group of amateurs starting their later big careers to come. But since these are all new characters in one fucking episodic style movie, we gain no attachment to them, their dynamic, while at points you're clearly meant to care, is underdeveloped, since we have no background on these people and what their relationship is, other than their teammates and nothing more. Only existing character from the show present here is Captain Ibuki, which, as Blue Nova stated, seems like a prototype to Gendo Ikari. Which, honestly, a lot of these things in this movie, I'd say, is a prototype to later works, but we'll get to that later. Essentially, he's got a son who's on the team that currently possesses the power of Ultraman Jack. Of course, he's got a tough relationship with his son, and over the years has grown to be a hard-ass captain. Which, by concept, sounds cool. He's been in the game for a while, he's seen some shit, so when stuff hits, he just wants to take care of it, even if it wreaks havoc on the country he claims to love. Actor does decent at bringing this to life too, since his performance is appropriately pushy to come across as an older leader abusing his power. But why is he like this? I mean, it's fine he's nothing like he was in the original show, as clearly years have passed, but that isn't an excuse for giving us no insight on his change of personality, and are only shown breadcrumbs on his relationship with his son. Why Gendo Ikari worked is we had an entire TV show revolving around him, forcing his son to do something he didn't want, while showing us why he's so hostile towards Shinji. It might not seem fair comparing a 26-minute movie to a 26-episode TV show, but more of the story is, if you can't fit something into the runtime of your plot, don't include it.
Just like sleeping with your girlfriend. If you ain't got the load in your tiny little head, just go fuck yourself.
There's a reason the episodic shows this movie is trying to mimic keeps the weekly story simple while sometimes having the overall plot more complex. Because if you complicate things, you begin to bite off more than you can chew. Which I appreciate Anno throwing in his own philosophical stuff with the episodic style movie, but you can really see he was only experimenting with his style at the time. Acting performance from the other crew is fine, while they clearly aren't gonna win any award and should put in a bit more heart into their lines. You can tell they tried and probably took multiple shots to get this right. And that's applaudable considering not only is it a fan film, but is one of the first projects they ever got their hands on. Anno is pretty good himself, as if you're able to ignore the no attempt at an Ultra design, he manages to keep a straight stoic face through all of this, including the monster fight to capture the motionless expression they tend to have. The transformation is pretty impressive. It's a nice homage to Ultra 7, and the visuals around it are striking looking at the next to no budget present.
Guess you could say it's a lot like a Professor Otaku video. Just a bunch of shit thrown together to see if it sticks. Only Anno gets laid.
But now that we're on Ultraman, holy shit. He fucking sucks. My god, where do I even start? From the flabby jacket that looks like some cheap merch a YouTuber would sell, the lack of face coverage.
Probably wore that shit in the women's locker room as well, hoping to get panties thrown in his face, but only thing he got was the damn skillet.
If this is what Ultraman looks like now, no wonder Ibuki wanted to nuke the place. Probably would have gotten Jack down there anyway, since he probably would have smoked that shit good looking at the places he's been. Fucker looks like he's been roaming the streets of Nebuda 78 because he sold everything, including his dignity, for a thing of crack. Probably stole Seven's glasses after they disowned the piece of shit. But Gojin, you're being too harsh. Look, are we reviewing the movie or the rough sex I had with your mom last night? If we judge it on no standards, then there's no review. So how about you crawl back to the corner with Lil Timmy over there and sip the rest of the heroin from Chef Boyardee's anal cavity. What the fuck? Ultraman wears jeans now. What were they thinking? Did they thank him for his support but couldn't make it past the indecent exposure laws anymore? Jesus Christ, dude. Put that silver ding-a-ling away. There are children here. Could they have at least put silver makeup or something to somewhat look like an Ultra? It still wouldn't be good, but that combined with Anno's performance at least would have accomplished something. Did they really just get so satisfied by the results with Kyurion they just called it a day and spent the rest on some cheap whore outside the studio? Maybe this was the road down Anno's depression. I will say Kyurion in the miniatures look like they came straight out of an 80s Ultra TV show. While normally it isn't a compliment for a film to look like something on TV, since shows not only are lower budget than movies, but have different deadlines due to their length and have more things to spend that money on. But for pretty much a college project to look like high budget television, that's an accomplishment. I appreciate that Anno and friends took time out to create something of their own instead of reviving an iconic Ultraman opponent like Red King or Zeton. He's unique to the point of looking otherworldly, but grounded enough where he's still cool to look at. While as much as I love Evangelion, some of the angels are just so otherworldly, I don't really find anything striking about them. They're just weird. If you liked Anno's shots he became so praised for throughout his career, those are still present, but in a more alpha stage for lack of better term. Shots around the action scenes are surprisingly competent. It manages to stay still while giving some shots I swear were used in Shin Godzilla. However, you can definitely tell this is a prior version to the style of filmmaking he perfected years later. It's shaking all over the place, points it's zoomed in too much for its own good, and you can tell he was inexperienced, as at times you can't make out what you're seeing since he's interested in doing these artistic angles, but does it at the wrong places. Fight Ultraman is kinda lit, capturing that lost episode vibe since despite being a group of amateurs, it looks like an Ultraman intro, and it sounds like one as well. For those you're hearing is a cut opening from the Return of Ultraman, which was replaced with the theme Katakita Ultraman. It's catchy and puts to use a fitting opening that was too good to let go to waste. Sound effects are stock, which might explain why Anno uses a lot of older sounds in his Shin movies as a love letter. And like then, it's charming and it sinks into what's going on in the footage, thanks to a solid editor. I'm sure back then it had to do with budgetary reasons and a deadline, but it worked so well at gathering the nostalgia, it became a common trait over time. Daicon Film's Return of Ultraman is an impressive start for a group of nerds who just started making cheap, low-budget entertainment for festivals. Of course, just because it's a fan film, I'm not gonna drop any standards. While I will lower some for budget reasons, there are things that suffer more from the lack of skill, and things like the monster looking as good as it does is proof of that. But that said, most things are pretty well done for their experience and money they had in their pocket. The battle, if you can forgive the no attempt at an ultra design, is well choreographed with solid fighting performance on both ends, and overall, it's worth checking out. Personally, if I was to rate this as a movie instead of a first-time project, I'd award it a solid 6 out of 10. Only 26 minutes long, so it ain't like you got anything to lose, so if you're interested in seeing not only Anno's first attempt at Ultraman, but one of the first movies that kickstarted his career, go for it.
Anyway, we have reached the end of the video, which also means we have reached the end of Ultramonth. Now, that doesn't mean there won't be any more Ultraman content on this channel. There is still a fuck ton of entries I would love to review down the road, topics to discuss on the podcast, amongst a lot more. But now I'm free to essentially talk about whatever I want, whenever I want, so please stick around for that. That said, please comment your thoughts down below, and if you enjoyed it, smash that like button, share it around, and subscribe. Make sure to hit that bell for notifications to keep up to date on all my future content. Also, check me out on social media and alt tech. Links are in the description down below. Alongside Anime Anteiku, they have been very helpful to the growth of this channel, and I can't thank them enough. Especially if you really like anime and manga. This is Gojin the Makai Phantom, leaving the building.